Hey guys, I am coming at you from Vienna, Austria. You can see there's a church there in the background. And it's noisy here. A lot of construction going on. I just arrived for a business trip. And it's about 11:30 in the morning right now here. I got in about 7:45. The plane landed at 7:45. And that would make it about 1:45 a.m. at home, my time. So it's about 5:30 in the morning at home. So I doubt there's a whole lot of people watching this right now. But if you are, hope you enjoy. I figured it might be fun to do a little walkthrough. Let's see, I can switch this and show you my front view. So we're in the Nestroyplatz area, or also known as Praterstrasse of Vienna. I come here every year for this business trip. And I have to navigate this because normally I can go straight through here and now I cannot. Looks like I can walk around this truck. Yeah, this is very unusual. So also, I'm not going to pretend to be a great cameraman. I don't do this live stuff very often, but hopefully this will still be a little bit interesting. So yeah, lots of construction. I don't know what they're doing, ripping up the whole street basically. So this looks a lot different than typically when I come here. I come here and stay in a hotel that I found. It's like a hotel apartment combination, which is a lot nicer than paying the 200, 300, 400 euros per night that you get at a lot of regular hotels here in the city. I managed to find this apartment that is pretty nice and spacious, and it cost me about 1,100 euros for the entire week. So it's in some years it's been even under 1,000. So definitely a much nicer deal for that, and still get the nice little Viennese breakfast. So here, I'll switch back to me for a second. So here we are walking toward the St. Stephen's Cathedral. That's what I'm heading toward. One of my favorite walks in Vienna, typically, in previous times when there hasn't been construction. It's a nice day, actually. It's about 48 degrees out and sunny. And a lot of times during this time of year, it's a lot colder here, so I'm kind of grateful for that. Switch it back over. So figured we'd just kind of chat and walk and see. I don't even know if I can go this way. No. Got fences up everywhere. Go this way. Just walk and chat. I'm going to talk a little bit of Heroes of Time. But first off, what am I doing in Vienna? Well, some of you know, I run two businesses. I run of course, my author business, Heroes of Time Productions. And then I also run a company that I've had for over 10 years in the medical equipment parts industry. So I'm always working full-time, both of those really interchangeably. And this trip is for that. This is an annual trip that we do. It's called the ECR, European Congress of Radiology. And I'm here for that. So Vienna has become one of my favorite places to travel to. Very safe, very clean for the most part. And I think finally we're getting out of the construction zone, so it's getting a lot quieter. Awesome food just right along the streets, and overall just great atmosphere. Really easy to travel around. I don't need a car. I don't need taxis or Ubers or any of that. The train system is actually really, really good here, right in the main city center, at least. I think it's called the Vienna Linien, they call it. The U-Bahn, red line, green line, purple line. Goes straight to the convention center, goes straight to my hotel. There's literally an elevator that goes right up to the front entrance, right outside of the hotel. So it's really convenient and low cost just to use the trains. So that's very nice. So I'm here for that, but also while I'm here in downtime, I'll be continuing to work on the editing of my next Heroes of Time book, which I will tell you the title of here in a little bit. Been back and forth on a couple of different titles for that, and it took me a while to finally decide what I wanted to do, and I really kind of had to feel that out, but I finally landed on an answer. And I've said it before, but I will confirm it for you guys. The next novel is going to be a prequel volume, and you may wonder, well, why would you do a prequel volume? You're supposed to come out with Murdoch 3, and that's fair. To be honest with you, the prequel volume was supposed to be kind of a novella that we were going to use for promotional purposes and giveaways and some things like that, and we may still use it for various promotional purposes. But what was going to be a maybe 40,000 word novella has become a over 70,000 word novel. So it's a story that stars Fulgur Geth, the fan favorite healer and spiritual guide from Murdoch's Choice, and just turned out that way. I mean, that happens sometimes. You realize you realize a story needs more room to breathe than you first thought, and you just run with it, and that's fine. So that's going to be out really soon. I wish it were out now, because we've got a couple of Comic-Cons coming up, and I wanted to have it ready for that, but it doesn't look like we're going to make it. Got Lexington Comic-Con and Indiana Comic-Con coming up in March, and we're about to cross the street here, and that's going to be tight. I may have the actual novel done, but to have all the formatting and the printing done in time for that is unlikely. So here we have a bridge over the river. The Danube River flows through Vienna and many other cities in Europe. This is actually a canal, I believe, off of the Danube, so this is not the main river. It runs through Bratislava, Slovakia, and Budapest, Hungary. I believe it actually separates the old cities of Buda and Pest. They were actually two separate cities originally in Hungary. I've done a tour there before. Another nice place. All these places around here in this area of Europe, very nice cities. Just lots of cultural significance and background, and very regal past with many palaces. And that's one of the places I'll be walking to later, probably, is the Schönbrunn Palace. So yeah, back to Heroes of Time. We have Murdoch's Choice, we have Murdoch's Shadow, and so those are books 1 and 2 that are out so far. And you possibly heard me say before as well, sorry if the connection's not good, because I'm getting a slow connection notice. So you've heard me say before that those are actually tie-ins. That's a tie-in series. The Murdoch series is a tie-in portion to the Heroes of Time overall series. We have the tie-in series and we have the main series. The main series is not out yet. It's just, again, the way it's fallen. I mean, I actually wrote the first book of the main series, which is called Heroes of Time, the First Ethereal, currently. Wrote that first over a 3.5 year period with the world building, all the initial setup of characters and planning. And in the course of writing that and planning out the world, I talked a lot with my old friend and colleague and member of the family, Dan Skip Person, who passed away late 2018 of a rare lung disease. But before he passed away, I got to speak with him about Heroes of Time, because I was putting it together at the time. And he was just an interesting character, an interesting individual. Very funny and witty at times, gruff and serious and intensely private at other times. And I thought, you know what, I think it'd be fun to make a character out of you. And so which is not something I normally seek to do. I don't normally try to make characters directly off of real people like that. But in this case, I thought it'd be fun. So I asked him what he would want to be. And he told me, pretty specifically, that he would like to be a sea captain specializing in high-value cargoes for the kingdom. And he also wanted to have a little sidekick animal. So we came up with Captain Zale the Gale Murdoch and his feisty red panda sidekick, Boomer. And that's how the Murdoch character was born. But Murdoch was originally going to be just a part of the main series, just another character in the main series. I had it planned out in some of my outlines and had plans for him. But as I finished the first book, I had also put together a trademark registration for the Heroes of Time name. And you can't trademark just a title. You have to trademark a series. And to have a series, you have to publish at least 2 books. Well, the first Ethereal is over 220,000 words long. It's a large book, and it will probably have to be trimmed and split a little bit. And I wasn't sure what publishing path I wanted to follow for that. More the traditional route, where you have an agent and try to get a larger publisher, or more the... Here, I'll try to show you some of the street here. Or more the self-published route. And I'm still not sure which way I want to go with that. Here's one of the remarkable things about places in Europe like this. You're walking down the street and all of a sudden you have really elaborate architecture just pop up out of nowhere. I don't know what this is now. It looks like an old church, but I think it's something else. And then there's an old Viennese restaurant right there. That's pretty good. So I actually haven't slept yet. I left home at my flight from the airport was 9:46, and in the morning from Louisville, Kentucky. Flew from there to Newark, and then it was not until about 6 p.m. from Newark to here, and landed here at 7:45 a.m. this time, which was 1:45 in the nighttime at home. So I thought I would go to the apartment and get a little bit of a rest. But as it got to be later in the day, and the day starting here, that's kind of a dangerous thing to do when you're trying to adjust to a different time zone. So what I did was just got cleaned up, felt human again, and ventured back out. And I'm going to fuel myself with food at this point. So I'm gonna find a place for lunch. I know where I'm going. I already know. I'm going to get a Wiener Schnitzel at Fiegelmuller, one of the original famous schnitzel places here in the Stephansplatz area. So I'll go back to the street view. This is another restaurant that I've been to before. I think the Schmarren. It's kind of like a, if I'm not mistaken, kind of like a pancake crepe thing almost. Kind of famous here. So anyway, going back to the first ethereal, that was written and I wasn't sure the publishing path, so as I was trying to get that trademark registration done, you know, I realized I had to have 2 books published, and so I decided I would do the tie-in series, and they would be shorter books. So I wrote Murdoch's Choice, and actually wrote it in about 3.5 months, versus the first book 3.5 years, but of course all the world building was done. And came out with that, and we actually were able to use the beta reading release of the first ethereal and the published release of Murdoch's Choice to get the trademark done. So that's kind of how the Murdoch series got started and was born first. Okay, so here we have the entrance to the Fiegelmuller area. That's where I'm going to go for lunch, but I'm going to walk past it for now so I can get you guys all the way to the famous St. Stephen's Cathedral. But this is a neat little walkway through here. Everything in towns like this is old. It's amazing. Just how old, you know, when we think of America being just a couple hundred years old, everything here is, I mean, 200 years old is kind of young for stuff here. You have buildings that are 700, 800, 1100 years old. I believe what they consider to be the oldest restaurant in the world. All right, you guys back? I think it went dead for a second. So this is the Fiegelmuller restaurant. That's where I'm going to go for lunch. Very nice. So I believe what they say is the oldest restaurant in the world is actually in Salzburg, Austria. And I don't remember the name of it, but I've been there before. It's another traditional Austrian place. But yeah, it's just really neat to think of how old everything is and how they still, you know, use all these buildings for all kinds of different things, many of them repurposed for modern use. As you can see, the various shops and stuff, especially when we get around to the cathedral, you can see how they've made things into Swarovskis and cell phone stores and jewelry stores and manor wafer stores and all manner of things. And many restaurants that have actually been around for a long time. And I think many of the restaurants here actually passed down generation to generation through families. Another thing I really like about Europe is just how local and fresh the food is and how people seem to take more pride in it. There's not usually a lot of tolerance for highly processed, mass-produced things like we have in the States, which is nice. So, and I actually know that there is somewhere around here, I don't remember where it is, there's actually there's a Kramer street that I've seen in the past. You know, Kramer being a German name, or Kramer as they tend to call me out here. So we're coming up upon the cathedral area shortly. Switch this over. So Yeah, here's a Manor store. So Manor is a lovely little hazelnut chocolate wafer. Always make sure to get some of that. So here we go. Here's the St. Stephen's Cathedral. Some horses. So they've got that black, you see a lot of black on the side. They have been trying to clean this stuff off for years. I think honestly, 10 years or more they've been cleaning that stuff off. But you can see they finished a lot of it on the front side. It's much brighter. And I think, you know, I've read about what that stuff is before. If it's some kind of, I don't think it's like an oxidation, but having to do actually more with modern day air pollution and that kind of stuff that accumulates in the stones. Very nice, large cathedral, not so uncommon from what you see around a lot of Europe, to be honest. Okay, so here's of time-wise. We have the Murdoch series now, and again, that's a tie-in series. And yes, Murdoch 3 is my next focus after the prequel volume comes out, starring Fulger. So the prequel volume, the name of that is going to be Heroes of Time Legends, The Healer. That is, of course, with Fulger being a healer and spiritual guide from Murdoch's choice. The name The Healer has many special meanings throughout the new book. And I can hear the bells of the church. It's not quite noon yet, so I guess they're not waiting for noon. But pretty neat. So, yeah, so The Healer. I was, as some of you know, and I asked this in the group, actually a lot of you voted for what you wanted the name to be. And the name that a lot of you chose was Shadow and Light. And I thought about that a lot, and I actually tossed it around in another group as well. And ultimately decided against it because it's number one, it is a good name for the story. There's definitely a shadow and light theme to it. But it's kind of generic fantasy to say shadow and light. That's the kind of name that you see a lot in fantasy already. And that was a point that was brought up by a number of other authors in a different group. So as I thought about it, I felt like, you know, when you look at the title on the cover, on the new cover, and I'll post very soon what the new cover is looking like, an update on that. When you look at the cover, to me there's more intrigue behind the Healer name. There's, you know, you see Fulger with his glowing black Novidian short sword / dagger / analace, they call it. And he's facing an evil sorcerer, a mage. So you see a definite light and dark theme on the cover, but that's so obvious, right? I mean, there's not any intrigue when you see that light and dark theme on the cover, and the title is Shadow and Light. Okay, see what's shadow and light. Okay. The signal went out again for a second. So when you see that name, The Healer, and and people kept bringing this up in the other fantasy group, there was more intrigue to it. Like, wow, he's a healer, but what we see is a guy that's fighting an evil mage, so it doesn't really look like a healer. So I really want to know, the idea here is you really want to know how he's a healer, why he's a healer, how the healing is significant. And so I think that the aspect of that cover kind of contrasting with the name will work well for people who just pick up the book. At least that's the hope, right? I mean, it's always sometimes a shot in the dark what people are going to actually do when they see something like this, but that's the idea. So we're going with the Healer, and going to set a launch date for that very soon. And yeah, that will be out shortly, and we'll be doing pre-orders for it. We'll announce that, of course. We'll probably have the pre-order stuff decided and a launch date decided before we head to these Lexington and Indiana Comic-Cons coming up in March. So by the way, if you do happen to be in the Lexington and Indianapolis areas, or you plan to travel there during those dates in March, then we would love to see you come by, and happy to sign some books for you. I'll have my Heroes of Time books, as well as the Penny Pangolin children's book series there. So, okay, well, there you have it. I think I'm probably going to stop there. I've gone past the cathedral. We're walking down a more modern, commercial street here. That's, again, the buildings are old for the most part, but they've been repurposed into modern use. And you've got all these shops here like you see in a lot of big cities. So, if you want to come and pay lots of money for for name brand stuff, this is your area. But there is one more wonderful thing down this street, which is the Sachertorte Hotel Sachertorte, which is a little chocolate cake famous in Vienna. And it's really nice. I like the little ones, the little rectangular ones. It's got this kind of it's a moist chocolate cake that's made with apricot jam in it, and it's got this kind of a chocolate shell. It's a lot of chocolate if you get just like the bigger cakes. To me, it's too much chocolate, but the little ones have a nice mix of the apricot jam and the chocolate, and it's really nice. They're expensive, of course, but very nice. So that's down here at the end of this street, and I'll probably be heading back there later. So I'm actually going to turn around here and head back toward Fiegelmuller for lunch, and maybe I will try this again for one of the palaces. We'll see. But hope you enjoyed it, and just kind of a reminder, like us on Facebook, follow us on YouTube. We'll probably try to get this video up on YouTube also, and subscribe and all that good stuff, so you can continue to see the updates and get all the latest about what's happening with the new book, Heroes of Time Legends, The Healer, and everything else that we're doing. There's a lot of stuff that I'm working on, a lot of stuff that'll be coming out in the future, and not always as fast as I want, but definitely consistently working for you guys on that. So if you've watched through this so far, I hope you enjoyed it. Hope it was interesting. And until next time, may the winds fare you well.